the age of 18 to 23 years old, I hate myself every day. I'm not just blaming dad for dying anymore. I just hate me. I hate me. I hate the life I'm leading. I hate the jobs I've lost. I thought I was going to be a baseball player, couldn't make that work, okay? I actually chose the drugs over this love of baseball. 23 years old, I'm living in a little apartment in Lake Charles, Louisiana, little tiny duplex. I lived on one half of this thing. One rainy night, this dude, Danny, comes in with drugs. Another day where I said, I'm gonna quit today. Now it's 11 o'clock at night. I didn't quit. 10 times I failed again. Danny leaves the house, and when Danny leaves the house, I didn't know, but he set it up to rob me and beat me up. Danny leaves the house, and I let him out the front door, and this other big dude in the rain, a rainy Louisiana night, puts a .45 caliber pistol in my face, right here, okay? I had a plate in my hand. I had something to eat, and I had a plate when I walked Danny to the door, and this guy had to be this big, hovered over me with a gun in my face, and when he did, my reaction was to hit him with the plate in the face. You know, I broke this plate. It was an unbreakable plate, one of those plates you can't break, and I broke it in his face, like just cracked it in his face. Thing breaks, and he becomes like a monster. This scar right here in my head is, he took that .45 caliber and jammed it in my face. Like, I don't mean jammed it, I mean cracked me right here in the forehead. My life changes now. I'm getting ready to get cracked so many times here. I'm getting ready to get the lesson of my life on where my life had gone from being a good kid this far from dying. Every wall in this apartment, in this room, and the ceiling has blood on it. I get rushed to the hospital. My girlfriend's there. She's in the back. She comes out, gets me to the hospital. I spend 3 days in a hospital. They put in 70 stitches in my head and face. I go home to my mother. I walk into my mother's house in the little brick house that I resented so much. And I walk to the house, and I go to the house in the back door. I knock on the back door. I'm beat up now, okay? My mom comes to the door, and she's like, what? What? Where's my son at? Where's my son at? I go in the house, I try to lay down. She puts me in this, you know, on a couch, and I try to lay down there, and the hospital doesn't want me to go to sleep because I could literally die. So they bring me back to the hospital. I spend 3 days in the hospital, and I'm like, I'm done. No more drugs. Okay, literally, I can't even recognize myself anymore. No more drugs. I'm done using drugs. Okay, guess what happens? I'm using drugs 15 minutes later, 10 times a day in the hospital. See, you would think, looking back, I would think this would be the day I would quit. For 2 more years, I would use drugs every day. Couldn't get out, couldn't quit, okay? Look, nobody starts using drugs and thinks they're gonna be a drug addict. I didn't. I started using drugs, and for some reason, something happened where those drugs just took over. My mom, at the age of 25, my mom says to me, you're no longer welcome in my home. You're no longer welcome in my business. And that was the day my life turned around. 24 hours later, I was in a treatment center because my mom had the courage to say, enough is enough. I'm done. All I know at this point, and I'm a loser. I'm a total loser. But I do have this little light inside of me that says I'm special. I have this little thing inside of me that says, hey, you are special, you know? You have something. But it was just covered up in all this stuff and all these problems and the drugs and the bad friends and the bad choices. So my mom finally says, enough is enough. Don't come back here anymore. I'm done. I could tell it was hard for her. I'm in a treatment center in the next 24 hours. I go to this treatment center. I'm there 30 days. For the first 30 days in 7, 8, 9 years, I don't use drugs. Oh, wow, I don't have to use drugs. Finally, that thing where I said I was quitting 10 times a day, for the first time in my life, I was able to quit successfully. I'm terrified, scared to go back to society. I don't have any friends that aren't using drugs. My girlfriend was using drugs. Everybody around me, everybody I knew used drugs. And I'm going back to a job where even at the job I had, they used drugs. And I'm like, I'm going back to an environment. I have to cut off all my friends, not really friends. I got to cut off all the enemies, right? And I got to start over. And before I leave, the counselor grabs me and the counselor says to me, look, dude, I'll see you back here. Probably, if you don't die, I'll see you back here. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I'm not coming back here. And he's like, oh no, you're coming back. And then he gives me the lecture. He's like, you'll never make it. See, when you go to a treatment center, you tell them everything about your life, like all your secrets, all your inhibitions, and your, the things you want to do in your life, right? And so I'm telling them in this thing, everything I've done wrong. I share my whole life, but I also share with them what I want to do, my inspiration in life. I'm going to write books. I'm going to speak to audiences. I'm going to help people. I'm going to tell people this story about drugs and how damaging they are. And I'm going to be somebody, I tell them. And they're like, no, dude. You're a drug addict. And all you're ever going to be, this is what the counselor tells me, all you're ever going to be is a drug addict. You need to give up all the ideas of writing books, speaking to audiences, being rich. I always wanted to be rich. I wanted financially to be rich my whole life. I wanted to be my dad. I wanted to be the guy that could take care of his family. They said, you need to give up all those ideas and settle for one thing, not using drugs again. If the day ends and you don't use drugs, Grant, that is a good day for you. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, that is, at 25 years old, I am not going to live the rest of my life just not using drugs every day. I'm going to be somebody, and I'm not coming back here. 25 years old, moved back into my mom's house. That was like, how do you do that at 25? Tell my mom, let me live back in the house. I'm coming back. I'm not using drugs, and I'm going to rebuild my life. And from that day on at 25, I made some commitments. Number one was I cannot afford free time. Okay, free time was the devil for me. If I had free time, I looked at my life. I just did a really good inventory of my life. Every time I had free time, I got in trouble. So I knew I had to, 1, eliminate the old bad friends. 2, I had to keep all free time busy. And I said, what are you good at, Grant? And I'm like, what are you good at? What are you really good at? And I'm like, I'm good at going all the way. Because even with the drugs, I was an all the way kind of guy, right? So I'm like, whatever you're going to do, Grant, you need to do it a lot. You need to use the addiction, right? I need to 10x everything. Like 10 was that number. My dad died when I was 10. I was using drugs 10 times a day. I was trying to quit 10 times a day. I'm like, whatever you're going to do now. I was in a sales job I hated. But you see, when you're making this kind of transition in your life, I don't trust anything about me at this point. I'm like, I don't like my job. Okay, but Grant, you don't like your life either. You don't like your friends. You don't even like yourself. I didn't need another thing not to like. I looked at my life and everything from the age of 10, I had not liked. I didn't like school. I didn't like my teachers. I didn't like authorities, right? I didn't like me. I didn't like my house. I didn't like my mom. I'm like, you got to start liking something, man. And more importantly, you got to get good at something. So I said, I'm going to take the job that I don't like and I'm going to get great at it. It was a sales job that I hated. Hated being a salesperson. I got a college degree, accounting degree, don't know how I got that, but I do have it. Got out of college, had this drug problem, put the drugs away. I go one whole day without using drugs. But what do I do with all this free time? I threw myself into this job that I didn't like. Every day I would go to work early, I'd stay late. Okay, I was doing 10-hour days, at least 10 hours. And if I needed to make one call, I would make 10. If I needed to see one customer, if I thought I needed to see one customer, I would fill it up with 10 customers. Whatever I thought I needed to do, I literally took this drug problem and poured this obsession with destruction into an obsession with, I'm gonna just 10 times everything and keep myself busy. I was so terrified of free time. I was more worried about free time than I was a drug. I was more worried about free time than I was not having money. I was more worried about free time than I was the old friends. I'm like, if I can just keep myself busy, if I can throw myself completely into this new thing, I think I could be all right. I literally took the addictive energy of a drug addict and took that energy and threw it into work, threw it into my profession, threw it into, hey, I'm gonna get great at something. And that's really what I've done now for the last, 25 to, I'm 60 years old now. 35 years. For 35 years, whatever it is I do, I throw myself into it so deep, so hard. I don't drink Kool-Aid. Okay, if we're gonna have Kool-Aid, I'm swimming in it. I'm like, bring in a swimming pool of Kool-Aid. We're gonna swim in it. I'm gonna do the backstroke in it, and I'm gonna do 10 laps, okay? Everything I do is at least a multiplier of 10. I never do anything less than 10. It's gonna be 10 or it's gonna be more. It could be 100, it could be 1,000. Anything that I do well, if I do it once, I'm gonna do it 10,000 times. So it's a multiplier. For me, my life has recovered not because I quit using drugs, but because I filled my life up with constructive things so many times that I figure it out. And I think the problem for a lot of people is, a lot of people, frankly, I don't think your problems are big enough. So look, I am running, and I want to help other people. I want to give people permission to be complete addicts, junkies, obsessed, maniacs, all in freakazoids that do everything 10 times more than you think you need to. I want the world to know me. You know, I've always wanted to be famous. See, you can't say this to people. In our society, you can't say, I want to be rich. I mean rich. I mean so rich that I can give $1 million away. That I can give $1 million away, not to my church, but I can give $1 million away to people I don't even know. I want to be rich in money. I want to be rich in things. I want to be rich in people. I want to be rich in ideas. I want to be rich in expansion. I want to be rich in energy and health. I can't get enough of it. I want it all. See, but you can't say this in society. You can't go out to a street corner and say, I'm gonna be a rich dude one day. People will be like, no, just be satisfied. This was where my problems started. My problems did not start with drugs. My problems started when people tried to get me to be 1 or 2, not 10.